Yeah.
I'm grinning right now at the further levels of added complexity that you're bringing up, because it's just more ingredients, and this is why I bring up these discussions, especially with on stream, is because a lot of people come over to the stream and talk about new ships. What are you going to buy? What are you looking forward to? What do you think's the next one? And I can't help feeling like the longer I'm playing, I can't help feeling like the PU is simply placating an audience that is just here to continue to buy ships and play it like it's a live service game.
It's so funny that you mentioned that.
Me
I can't unsee you as a chef going,
not a live...
needs more oregano, like.
Yeah, but this is not going to be a live service game. The entire intent, supposedly, is that we are going to help in creating this final product, which is going to be this great product. I kind of want to figure out if we're playing a live service game right now, or if any of this, is any of this stuff actually meaning anything, or every discussion we have, every new video that gets released from CIG, does any of it ultimately mean anything if 1 year down the line every single ship gets a completely new interior anyway, because the gameplay doesn't work, right? When you bring everything online. I think the thing that concerns me about the number of ships that they're releasing and the continuous release is that I think we should start to look at like just base core gameplay now, like over anything, so that because there's so much complexity.
I have always kind of looked at the PU as a distraction why they make Squadron 42, that they were always going to swing back around and work on. That's how I've seen it for years and years and years. Like, the speed at which that has been developed is just so glacial that it's like Moy said, there's just next to nobody working on it, right? And you always hear them about all the things that go into a patch, and then the patch doesn't make it because they just don't have the people working on it.
But meantime, everyone's still posting every single time on Spectrum about little bugs that they found and all this kind of stuff. I'm pretty sure that if you looked back 2 months ago, it was the same bug. It got fixed, and it's the same bug again.
That's
tell me, Noodle.
That's the what do they call it when they alternate between the patches? I can't remember. The staggered development, because I'll fix it in one, but they haven't fixed it in the latest one. So then the latest one goes forward, and so it's broken again, and then it comes back around again.
Something to bear in mind as well is that what we see as a bug is actually a symptom of something else. So what you can have is for example, NPCs T-posing on chairs, right? But there's actually 10 things that causes that. So, and I also want to say, I crack jokes about the fact that there's only 5 people working at CIG, but what I will also say is that those 5 people at CIG who are working on Star Citizen are incredibly passionate about Star Citizen. Like Yogi, for example, is a great example. Those guys wouldn't be posting on Spectrum because they don't have to do that, right? They don't really have to engage with the community like they do. They do it because they really love the work that they do, right? And they're as passionate about Star Citizen as a lot of us are.
It's a look.
It's glacial.
What do you think, Noodle? What do you think, Noodle, about kind of continuing to kick the can down the road, and one day we're going to get that feature that ultimately all the balancing or all the PvP you've done, all the strategies that you've come up with, is that just for all like what you have now, or does it worry you that the ships that you're putting in your hangar or anything like that, ultimately they're not gonna, because right now Star Citizen, like you said, it kind of works as like my ship is an extension of my body, and if I shoot, then my ship shoots. In future, when you have like a constellation or something, you've got 2 turret gunners, you've got 2 side seats, you've got boarding actions, you've got engineering and repair gameplay. So, right now we've got none of that, which means, it is a little horse before the cart, even having this discussion. But I mean, someone's got to start having it, right? And at what point do we think about like, okay, nothing else, but let's what is it, grey box this thing. Let's go back to grey box and figure out if any of this stuff is going to work.
So this is like where I come in from my old development days, and I don't think they're prepared to balance anything because they know they're going to have to balance again every time they add a new feature. You add in armor, that changes everything. You add in components, that changes it again. You add in engineering, it changes it again. I think they want to get all the framework in before they start balancing. And the reason why they haven't done much balancing is because it's basically just combat at this point. They don't have all those other systems in. That's why they've just never really come back and, you know.
I agree and disagree.
Yeah, go ahead.
And where I disagree is I think you're thinking from a game development standpoint when it comes to traditional development, but Star Citizen isn't traditional development, right?
Definitely.
And the only thing, CIG have an incredibly difficult task of they need money flowing, and they constantly need money coming in to continue the development of this game, right? And what that means is they are constantly playing politics, and I feel so bad for Jake and all those guys that work on the community team because it feels like it's constantly putting out fires for them. But they kind of have to balance. Okay, do we spend development time doing X to please the community because we need the community to stay on our side and spend money? Or do we just let them be upset and not bother balancing? You know, I've seen people make comments like, well, you know, it's an alpha, so there's no point balancing. CIG don't balance. Well, if you go and look at patch notes for every single patch, you're wrong because they're clearly trying to balance things, but only to a certain degree.
That's
right.
What I mean.
Like they're only balancing within the time frame that they have given, and they're just trying to get it to a point where it's kind of playable. You know.
Yeah.
So,
but I mean, they're not doing the serious kind of 100% final pass. That's what I mean by dirty balancing. They're doing it so it's you know what 90% across the board that covers most of the bases.
It's kind of fun.
Yeah.
You know, it's about playable. Whatever,
because you can do that pretty quickly, but like to do all that refined stuff, like anything, I don't know. You've probably heard this in game development before, but the last 10% takes as long as the first 9. Yeah, you know. So it's that type of thing. So they're just doing.
But ultimately, guys, isn't this a space game, right? Mm-hmm. So. I know we're looking at the amazing thing about Star Citizen is obviously you've got the FPS combat, you've got the in-space stuff, you've got the trading stuff, etc. But ultimately, it's a space game. So, do you think we're a little bit late down the line for thinking about altering flight mechanics? I mean, arguably.
Oh man, it's so funny that you say this. But I said to you earlier before we even started this recording, right, that I feel like when it comes to the flight model, the last like 3-4 years or whatever it is has been completely wasted because master modes has basically kind of what like the master modes that I've been trying, right? I don't know if they've tweaked it since I last played. They've basically kind of brought the flight model back to what it originally was. And
that's because of networking or because of like gameplay.
I think it's a mixture of both actually. The Ares, sorry to keep bringing up the Ares, but that really did highlight how bad positional desync was, and obviously I think you can only do so much, right, to try and solve desync issues when you have ships traveling at 1,000 meters per second, right?
They have slowed it down significantly though now. It is and the switching between the two modes, I think that's going to solve a lot of the issues too. Yeah,
and also if you talk to kind of any PvPers, right? It is super frustrating when every single person's immediate reaction to losing a fight is just to start zooming, and then you end up dogfighting each other at 1,200 meters per second, right? And then again, you end up with this positional desync hell, right? So yeah, I think it's a mixture of both.
Right.
I'm kind of happy with what I've seen so far. I would definitely like to see some more tweaks, but I kind of want to come back a little bit, Expat, to what you were saying before about actually don't worry about it because I've already forgotten what it was now. I'm so ODD.
The captain staff or the the complexity, anything about the flight mechanic? Is that ringing any bells?
The cooking,
No,
the recipe,
it'll
the
pop back into
ingredients.
my brain. It'll pop back into my brain in a minute when we're talking about something else. Don't worry about it. It's all good.
So we've got this new arena commander mode, right?
Oh, sorry. I remember what it was now.
Yes, tell me.
Because you said something and you did hit the nail on the head when you said right now the flying a ship is like an extension of your body, right? And I think you really did hit the nail on the head with that, because again, myself and my partner Zal, we fly like fighters a lot, and it's funny that you mention it, because this was something that we were talking about a few days ago, me and Zal, in that both of us are at a point where neither of us ever want to leave our ship. Because whenever we leave our ships, that's always when we die. We get shot in the back of the head, or somebody, we're not paying attention to radar, and then a ship comes down and destroys our ships while we're on the ground, right? So we don't leave our ships. But one of the things that I'm most looking forward to with the dream that is Star Citizen, and I'll give you an example from a TV show, Battlestar Galactica, the episode where Starbug gets shot down, right, and she has to try and get the radar up and running so she can make it back to Battlestar Galactica. Dude, I love this idea for Star Citizen. I love the idea of the wear and tear system, right? And I love the fact that I could get damaged in my arrow, and then I know I can't make it back to a station because, for example, my QD or my quantum drive is damaged, so I have to land. Right, and I have to do some dirty repairs on the side of the road, which takes me back to my motorbike days.
You've hit on a point there that my brother brought up to me years ago, and I think there actually are going to be people that play this game that never fly a ship. They'll be just a first-person shooter person, just like you were saying. You and your partner are just ship people.
We need crew.
There'll be crew people that just want to do turret gunning. There'll be people that just
I can give you an example.
A nurse or doctor or whatever.
My friend Gallag Hero, I call him Gallag Hero, it's actually Gallagher 07, but Gallag Hero, he's a Marine, right? And there was a day, and this is one of the memories that will always stick with me playing Star Citizen, and it was quite recently, where he came into my Twitch chat and he was like, dude, I'm on the ground, I've got ships above hunting for me, can you come and help? So me and Zal hopped in a Aurora MR. I was already in my Arrow, so we flew there, and do you know who it was? It was Captain Burks and his crew.
Yeah, I figured.
And me watching Zal, Burks was in a Hurricane with a turret gunner, right? And watching Zal in an Aurora MR picking on Burks in a Hurricane was one of the most hilarious things I've ever seen in my life. And I think he jumped out. He's a great pilot. But because me and Zal, we've flown together for so many years now, we're in each other's head. Right. So we basically we tag team. So the moment that he would turn towards Zal would just start flying evasively, and I would shoot them in the back. Then he would turn to me, and then I would start flying evasively. But it wasn't just Burks and the Hurricane. There was a few other ships as well. I know Virgil was in the Hornet, and some of his viewers were there as well. And it was a really, really epic battle. But again, Gal is a Marine, and it was just so cool. It comes back to that rock, paper, scissors. Right, he was overwhelmed, he needed help, so that's where the social aspect of the game came in. He thought of the first person he thought of to come and help was me, and then we end up having these kind of epic battles, and that's what I want more of in Star Citizen. And this is a whole other conversation, but I'll just leave this here. We need stuff to fight over, right? Which we don't really have right now.
You've got an important thing to say though, because the people are going to be a balancing part of this game. It really is a factor of it. Not just the skill, but the people the people in your org, and like what happened with Gal, people that you can call on.
The uncertainty, right? The human element.
Yeah, exactly. The social aspect is so huge, and it's way bigger than I think people realize. So when I see people, I've this is a bit dark, but I've had people tell me they want me to get cancer and die, all right? And yeah, I know it's shocking in a video game, crazy, because I shot them in space. Oh no!
What is this, Halo? Is this Halo on the Xbox back in the day? Yeah.
But the thing
Well,
is,
plus
right?
You've got a lot of salt for your chips, so yeah.
True. But the thing is, like, I've had situations where, you know, I've been with Space Cutlet, right? And we've pirated people. And the people we've pirated have actually ended up joining the crew. And that is actually how I got into pirating in EVE Online. I was pirated by Pay No Inc. And I thought it was so cool that I became friends with them and I joined them. And
Nice.
that social aspect is really cool. But on the flip side, I will say to anybody who's watching the podcast, you know, just bear in mind that your reputation, and I'm not talking about reputation in game, your reputation with other players socially means something. And as the development of this game moves forward, we get to a point when long-term persistence isn't being reset anymore and you actually have stuff to lose, right? Don't forget, that guy who you told you want them to get cancer and die is probably going to remember you. And when you're in a Hull E carrying your entire load and he's sat there with his pirate crew, right, that might come back to bite you. So
I actually think the social element is the most important thing in the game.
1 second, guys.
Right now, because it is literally all we kind of have. Like, to be honest with you, there's just not enough game for me. Like, all the stuff that I do right now is with other people. I go out and hang out with you. I go out and hang out with Moist. I go out and hang out with Gal. I had hanging out with Gal literally just yesterday, by the way.
Right.
He needs a haircut. If you see Gal, tell him he needs a haircut. He looks like he's fallen straight out of Hercules from the one that was filmed in New Zealand in the 90s.
Really?
He looks just like Hercules. It's got wavy hair down
Oh, I
here.
used to love that show.
Yeah, but yeah, I thought you'd be more Xena, but anyway. Yeah. Yeah.
That was Xena.
Yeah. I got it. I used to watch it too when I was a kid. But yeah, I think the social element is one of the biggest things that we have right now, and I don't think it should be underestimated because there's just not enough. I keep coming back to this game for the people I've met, and to play.
Oh yeah,
play with.
absolutely. The community is amazing.
Mm.
But I find it really interesting what he mentioned about the Battlestar Galactica thing. I mean, that's yet another thing I hadn't really taken into account. You know, when I was thinking about like ultimately the future of like, you know, combat and things and multi-crew was you know, you might think you've taken somebody out of the battle, taken somebody out of combat. You know, there goes the arrow, it crashes to the ground and you think, oh, okay, they're out of combat. But if you did have the resources to repair your ship, right? I mean, there were mention about being able to get back up and back into the action. So yeah, you might think you've got it in the bag, and then all of a sudden that ship suddenly turns up again. You know, when you least expect it. I mean, certainly that happens in Sea of Thieves, where you sink a ship that had a bunch of loot, and there's you. Yep. Picking all the loot off of the ocean, and all of a sudden, oh, here they come! They're back again, right?
And that'll happen.
And that's just the don't underestimate the pilot kind of thing, you know, and their persistence.
Well, that'll happen in this, and it'll also happen based on the size of ships, because right now that time to kill is gonna go out, and you know, single set of ships will still be fairly short time, but then like a really big thing, like a ship that has engineering and stuff, they're going to live a lot longer, and they're going to have a lot more regenerative ability compared to a single seat fighter that can't really repair itself because it's just you and that's it, you know. But the more crew you have, the more repairs you're going to be able to make, the more fixes you're going to be able to make, and the less you get, the more you're going to be able to fix the things that go wrong. So there is a balance to everything. It's just gonna. Well, that was really creepy. That guy just walked past you. It was creepy on you real hard.
Would you actually be able to refresh my memory, and maybe some people watching right now, and hello out there, about what do we know about Death of a Spaceman? What do we know about the attribute system that they discussed at CitizenCon last year? Do you think any of that's actually coming in? So what do you lose when you die?
So attribute stuff seems to be, to me, I think that they're minor things, and they seem to be, if you are doing something, it makes you better at what you're doing. right? So the example they gave, that if you were constantly picking up boxes and carrying boxes, it'll make you carrier, and you can carry more and you can carry faster. And we've seen this in other games too, like even in Starfield recently. If you are doing something, it kind of basically, well, it used to be that in Skyrim, you know, like you do lock picking, you get better at lock picking, right? It's the same type of analogy, and it's a small bonus, like 5 to 10%. It's not this drastic huge thing. It just makes it more of a creature comfort thing, and it makes you build your character into the person that you're using. So I don't really have a problem with your tribute system, but what do
you think? What do you think the cost of a life is? Is basically what I'm trying to get to. Is what do you think a cost of a life is? Because at the end of the day, if I send a guy to get out of his turret, get on his armor, get the weapon out of the weapons rack, and head to the airlock, knowing that he is probably, before anyone else on the crew, the most in risk to die first, right?
So there's
what do you think that player sacrifices?
So it's a multi-part question, right? Because they've had other things that come into it. So obviously, if you're on foot, you're more likely to die than if you're in a big ship or on a planet that's got in a safe space and stuff like that. So one of the things they seem to be leaning towards is when there's an on-foot battle, you can pay an extra cost to overprotect yourself, or the party paying for you to do the mission will do so. So, you know, you'll come back with less damage. But it's also how much damage do you take? Like if you take a grenade launcher to the head, you know, it damages your brain. So therefore you take, you know, like it takes a bigger hit to your life pool or your ability to regenerate. But if you just like lose your pinky finger, you know, they can, you know, grow another one and sew it back on. You don't need your whole character regenerated. So it really comes down to how much damage you take and stuff like that. And that seems to be, for what I'm seeing from the documents, what I've read, the real biggest gray area is kind of that first person shooter combat, and that was always been a thing. But I think that's what they're leaning towards, is that certain organizations will pay for you to be regenerated, so they'll pay for medical care essentially, so you'll come back with less damage
so you come back with more, like, or less of your stats, quote unquote stats, you know, missing and stuff like that. And obviously it's going to take you time to get back to your post, you know, like if you're a turret gunner on a hammerhead and you get killed in combat, it's going to take you time to get back. So all that is a variable. But I mean, there's just so many variables. Noodle mentioned that he was most excited about the captaincy side of things. What are you most excited about in the future, Execute, as far as what you're looking forward to see and start actually testing?
It's always
as far as, like, you know, things that will be ultimately in the final game.
It's always been the gameplay for me. I just want more and more gameplay. You know, as I kind of said, like right now, the game is just fun to play with other people. Like that is the game for me. But then actually adding really cool things to do, like look at Starfield. You and I talked about Starfield in the last couple of weeks. Imagine if Starfield was multiplayer. Imagine if you could actually do that stuff together. That game just instantly increases it by magnitudes in popularity for me. And that's what Star Citizen's essentially promising. Even if it was just Starfield and multiplayer, but I think it's Starfield multiplayer and more. So yeah. All right, welcome back.
Sorry, guys, the electrician turned up.
Yep. You did,
great.
For the audience's sake, he did mention that the electrician was turning up. But we have gone longer than even I expected.
And it's a great thing.
It's been a good conversation, that's why.
Yeah, so we were talking a little...
excellent conversation.
We were actually talking a little bit about what we're looking forward... Well, that's what you asked me. What are you looking forward to... Actually, re-ask the question, but point it at Moist for me, please, Expert.
Well, actually, just previous to that, we were actually discussing about what... you know, ultimately, when it comes to captaincy and when it comes to combat and death in Star Citizen, Noodle, what do you think it's going to cost a player to be sacrificed, or to be the one on the front line, or to be the one at the most risk? What do you think, based on what you've heard? Because that also influences one's decision in combat. And especially in some of these, you know, when you're talking about assets, when you're talking about your, you know, your large scale warfare and things, sacrificing assets, or the potential to that asset will be sacrificed. Creepy guy behind me. What do you think the death of a spaceman is going to mean? What do you think about the attribute system? What do you think we're going to see?
back during the again, I come from an EVE Online background, right? So back then, you know, in EVE Online, you basically have clones, you die, you respawn. You know, losing a ship is incredibly brutal. There was the thing that the moment where I finally decided to not play EVE Online anymore, and it wasn't because I lost the ship. It was just, you know, losing the ship was the catalyst that made me think, okay, maybe this isn't the game for me anymore. And, you know, I'm not enjoying it so much. Is I had a ship called a Balgorn that I used for PvP.
Right.
It was a fully faction fit Balgorn. I had all like really expensive implants. And I basically allowed myself to get baited because whenever I took this Balgorn into a battle, I basically screwed everyone on the enemy side, and they knew they had to get rid of my ship, and I allowed them to bait me, and I ended up losing the ship because I was being arrogant, right?
Right.
And losing the ship,
the human factor.
losing the ship that had taken me like a year to build up was very, very painful. Losing all the implants was very, very painful. And funnily enough, it was 2014 when I lost that ship, which was when I finally backed Star Citizen just before the PU became a thing, right?
So,
and
essentially that thing, but so that thing that happened to you, it made you kind of quit EVE, basically rage quit EVE because
it wasn't.
Felt like
it wasn't necessarily that. It was more. It was more that when I started playing EVE Online, I played EVE Online because there were no other sci-fi space games out at the time, right? Especially multiplayer games that I kind of wanted to play that I hadn't already played. The genre was very kind of stale, and the fact of the matter was, EVE Online was never really my kind of game, right? I wanted. Right. I grew up with flight simulators. And I wanted to use a HOTAS. I wanted to use joysticks, and that's not what EVE Online is. So when I finally lost that ship after playing the game for a decade, that was when I was like, this isn't my kind of game anyway. I don't think I can bring myself to build all this back up again. Star Citizen is going to be a thing. That sounds good. And that's when I backed Star Citizen, and I answered the call, right, which was going to be like 2016.
Did you understand the consequences of your actions while you were? Did you understand how extreme or potentially
absolutely.
The consequences of your actions in that game were?
Absolutely.
Did that add to the gameplay? Did that add to your?
It absolutely did. It absolutely did add to the gameplay. And I played the game knowing the consequences of my actions, right? Which was why when I finally backed Star Citizen, I was kind of excited to still have that with Star Citizen, because again, that's not the thing that made me quit EVE Online. It was just the type of game EVE Online wasn't my kind of game. Like the point and clicky nature of it wasn't my kind of game. But I liked the consequences. So when Death of a Spaceman was being talked about for Star Citizen, I was super excited for that. But the fact of the matter is, over the last couple of years, right, they've toned down the idea of what Death of a Spaceman is supposed to be. Now clones are going to be a thing in Star Citizen, and I'll be honest with you, my first reaction when they started talking about this was huge disappointment, because one of the things that I think is kind of important to have in video games in general is emotion, right? I want to feel emotion when I'm playing a game. And I have never felt an emotion like losing that ship in EVE Online in any other game.
And I mean, Sea of Thieves, when you spend an entire game session with your buddies, putting a bunch of loot on your ship, and the next thing you know, you turn around and see a massive galleon full of, hardcore sweat PvPers, and oh crap, we have to fight for our mother fudging lives here. And that feeling of like upping your game in that moment, the adrenaline, the moment where it could all be lost, and let's say you didn't lose it, and you actually came out with a win. That feeling of that is something else, right?
It's incredible,
and that's important.
But I don't know if it's just me getting soft in my old age, but I think it's more because I've gotten into like DCS world, all right? It's important to remember that if somebody has one life and they are potentially going to lose a lot, then they're going to play a lot more cautiously than somebody who just kind of gets thrown in like Call of Duty. And I think there's a very careful, I hate to use this word again, but balance, because what you don't necessarily want is people to just constantly be throwing spears at each other from behind rocks, right? And what I mean by that is, you know, you actually want people to dogfight, because that's the experience that Chris Roberts was going for. He wants that like Star Wars World War II dogfighting style gameplay. But people aren't going to do that if they think they're about to lose all of this stuff. Yeah. Right.
Do you think Sea of Thieves came up with a good balance with the very quick respawning? I mean, the fact that you would just have to sail over and try and, you know, win it back, you know? Do you think Star Citizen will benefit from a win it back mentality?
I think that will be, I think that's a thing that we will and won't have. So I think, and again, it comes down to, it's a similar conversation to the pirate conversation. Should pirates be allowed in Stanton, right? And I was the person who argued to have turrets added to stations, to have missiles added to stations. I remember having this conversation with Winter, who's on the player experience team at CIG, like 3 years ago, before turrets were added. I was like, dude, why don't they have turrets? It's completely unfair that I can just sit at a station destroying absolutely everybody completely unopposed, you know?
And we also need a fast action UC, I was going to say UC, God, Starfield. As I say, a fast action UEE Naval Presence, you know?
Absolutely. I was about to say that.
Foot wrong. If you put a foot wrong, you can quickly go on your comms panel and radio in, and all of a sudden, the next thing you know, here's a hammerhead from the UE Navy. Well,
I would say that there should be a realistic part to that, though. Like when the simulation comes in, like they're sent out from one of the main planets, but if you're way out,
that's how it's going to work. I think,
and I think it will work that way. Yeah.
The point that I'm coming to is, look, if you are the sort of person who just wants to play it safe, then you live in the high-sec systems, because we know it is going to be a little bit like EVE Online, that you're going to have some systems that are high security, some that are low security, like Pyro, right? You can just stay in those high-sec.
EVE did it well.
Yeah, you can stay in the high-sec systems, less likely to run into player pirates, because player pirates won't be able to, or it will be a struggle for them to stay in those high systems. And if you die in a bunker, you'll probably just respawn at a station that's like a 10-minute quantum jump away. Fantastic. Whereas if you die in Pyro, all right, where are you going to respawn? Probably at Ruin Station, where it might take you maybe an hour to get back to where you were at, right? So again, I think it's a really careful balance of allowing people to play the way that they want to play.
But you can work around that too with medical respawns if you have the ship and stuff.
Yeah, what you don't want to do is, I think you shouldn't limit the game for the common lowest denominator. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way. What the point that I'm trying to make is, again, there are people who want the game to be chill, and that's absolutely fine. But there are a lot of people who want it to be, like, I play Elden Ring. I have 700 hours in Elden Ring, right? And I like it to be a little bit more hardcore. I like to push myself. I want to see how far I can get. And I like working with a team, because the thing is, again, bring it back to the rock, paper, scissors thing. There are going to be a lot of things that you can't do in this game without a team, right? So, so yeah, it's bring it back.
I mean, you look at any MMO, it's end game content is usually locked behind, getting a team of people together.
Absolutely.
The old World of Warcraft days, or like you say on your EVE experience,
I played a lot of World of Warcraft.
All right, guys, we are coming to the end of the time limit here, so to speak. So what would you like to hear, Expat, in the comments below from people?
Okay, very, very, very quickly though, Execute. I feel like we've missed one of the key parts. We've missed one of the key parts, and I know we're going to be struggling for time, but just very briefly, okay. So with all this complexity in place and everything that we've discussed, and all the various different things that are going to have to be balanced in the future, and all the different new things that are going to have to come online and CIG are going to have to develop and put in the PU. When some of those things, or when some of those core mechanics are put in, engineering and the proper flight mechanic, or a flight mechanic that they've decided this is how it's going to be, let's balance it. how would you like to see things done? Personally, I would like to see the Sea of Thieves mechanic, and we go into the arena commander, and we have a small ship, a medium ship, and a large ship. And until those three work together, can fight each other fair, can fight, up and fight down the scale of the size of the ship and the complexity of the ship, crew gameplay, boarding, all the different aspects. I think 3 ships to rule them all, and then from there you can start to work out the complexity. I mean, ultimately that's why I was discussing on the stream, and that's how this came about. Do you think I would be mad to suggest that they should just pick 3 ships, 3 core ships, 3 ships that are in these 3 tiers, and really choose the best ships to be the all rounders, and start balancing from there? Or do you have another suggestion?
That aside, I think Noodle will agree with me. You are definitely mad. But yeah, go ahead, Noodle. You can.
I think it's still a little bit. The thing is, it's not too bad as it is right now. Like, for example, it sounds like a really fun game mode in Arena Commander, and one that I would probably actually play. But if you could choose like a Hornet, a Gladius, and a Redeemer, right, or a Constellation, and I think that would be great.
I thought Cutlass Black, Constellation, and whatever was above it. I can't remember.
Yeah,
what was above it, but there's something above it.
That would be absolutely fine. But even now, I don't think that's. I still don't think that's in terms of balance. I actually think those ships aren't too badly balanced right now. Anyway.
No, but I'm thinking from like the entire game, like to say that this is like your low level, your medium level, your high level, and then you get offshoots. So from basically, those ships. I mean, to actually balance the game. You're kind of saying
a bit like how they have the Gladius as gold standard, right? And they do a lot of testing with the Gladius, but doing that with more than just the Gladius. I think that's not a terrible idea, to be honest with you. Yeah.
Yeah, I think from my point of view, it's really how they choose to go about it. I still think we're really in our infancy, and I think they need to get all the gameplay in before they can really. It's that cart before the horse thing for me personally. So, but yeah, how they choose to go about it at the end of the day, that is one way they could definitely go about it.
They at the end of the day, they still need to do the dirty balancing, right? Because it still has to be a fun game to play when you actually get into those dogfights. But again, you can't balance the game when
we have to kick the can and buy the ships, right? We have to kick the can and buy the ships.
You can't balance the game for the future when we don't have physicalized armor, when we don't have relays and engineering gameplay, right? Because those things fundamentally will change everything. Right? So.
So I guess we can kind of put that question to the audience now. Are you guys kind of like, I want to know in the comments below, are you kind of agreeing with us? Like there's a few elements there, as Expat has alluded to. I think it's like Noodle said as well, and I've said there's a lot of extra things to go in there. Do you agree with us? I think the other thing I'd say is what other is there anything else that we've missed? But yeah, Expat, what would you like to see from people in the comments below?
Well, let me preface this by saying I'd just like to warn everybody that, as you have no doubt found out in this conversation, there are a lot of things that are still to be integrated into the game. You're not going to be your solo guy or solo person in a ship and necessarily be able to do everything you can do today in the future. Buy ships and think about your future with all these different things we've discussed today in the back of your mind, that there are so many different elements and balancing and ship interiors and engineering gameplay and first-person shooter and docking and boarding and there's just so much complexity coming forward in the future potentially, and that ship that you're in might not be the ship that you want to be in the future. So use caution coming up in the future. But what I'd like to see in the comments is, let's say they got all of these different things in the game, all these different elements, and we did see the more final versions of all these different gameplay loops and multi-crew gameplay. How do you think they should go about balancing the 100 ships, the 200 ships, how many ever ships they've got by then? How do you think it's even going to be possible to get this thing in a place that everybody is happy, or will this forever be a struggle? between what I want, what you want, and what he wants. And yeah, will it ever get there? That's what I'd like to see in the conversation.
Moist? Same question.
Completely different for me, but a really simple question. I really kind of enjoyed touching on command structure earlier. And I would love to know what kind of roles people are hoping to fill in the future once we have all of the intended mechanics, whether it be you want to be a fighter pilot, you want to be a captain, you want to be an engineer, you want to be essentially a politician between orgs, because the social aspect of Star Citizen for me is one of the things that, even though I'm super introverted, which we were talking about earlier, it's actually one of the things that I enjoy the most, you know. So I just like to hear. I would love. What I want to see are the people who don't want to fly spaceships, right?
Yeah.
Whether you want to be a space hobo or a bartender, whatever.
Yeah. I think you kind of hit on a thing there too. Everyone's going to try their hand at different things as well. So there's you're never ever going to be locked into one thing in this game. And I think that's one of the appeals of it. You can, one day you can do this, and then the next day you can do that. It's that simple. All right, then, Mr. Moist, where can people find you on the interwebs?
I refuse to call it X, so Twitter at the Moist Noodle.
Dude, that's the URL. So just call it twitter.com and you're covered.
where you can follow my. I'm actually building a USS Voyager model at the moment, a Naval Voyager model. I'm putting a lighting kit in it.
How far through it was you? I did drop by your stream the other day, and you just.
I would show you, but my green screen's in the way. So it was never intended to have a lighting kit put in it. So I'm having to go through and cut out all the windows at the moment. I've just finished cutting out all of the windows and filing the windows. So I need to get the lighting kits, and then I've got a friend who's actually going to help me paint it, because I want to have a nice paint job.
So you do a lot of PvP in Star Citizen, and you're on Twitch?
I do.
So just Twitch?
So I'm not. twitch.tv/moist_noodle. I've not been playing a huge amount of Star Citizen recently because I'll be honest with you, I'm a little bit disappointed with all of the duplication bugs that have been in the game. You know, there's a lot of people who say, oh, me duping doesn't affect you. Well, yeah, it does actually, because if everybody's duping, nobody needs to go and earn money. If there's nobody earning money, then there's nobody for me to pirate, and that affects my gameplay, right? And unfortunately, we're not getting a wipe for 320, which I'm a little disappointed about, which, it's kind of whatever. But I play a lot of DCS World as well. I fly the F-16 primarily. I fly a little bit of the F-18, and I fly a lot of the Apache as well. So if anybody, we run a server actually called Star Citizen Refugees. So if anybody does play DCS, you're welcome to come and play on the Star Citizen Refugees server.
Can they find a link to that on your Twitter?
All you have to do in DCS is just search for Star Citizen, and it'll pop up in the server list. But yeah, and the password is boobies.
Original. Like the old calculator ones.
To be memorable.
When you did the calculator upside down. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Hey, Expat, where can people find you on the interwebs?
Well, they can go and watch this face walking and talking around Stanton at twitch.tv/ExpatBrat, or hit me up on the Twitter. I also don't call it X, at ExpatBrat_. Wish I could have the original name, but it is what it is. And yeah, look forward to seeing you at one of my live streams, and you can come and discuss all the things with me.
Your kind of claim to fame thing, I guess, would be is you do a lot of cinematic content as well. So it's very story driven.
I turn Star Citizen into I improvise just whatever, a story every week. I play my own cinematic music or licensed music at different times to bring different moods. I mean, I'm trying to live and breathe inside the verse. I'm trying to be as immersed as possible. And it's always more fun when a funny bug appears in front of me when I'm taking everything so seriously. And people are standing on tables and...
I reckon 1 week, Captain Noodle of the Moist and his salty sea dog cabin boy Execute should come and hang out with you, and we'll do a story one time.
I love that idea.
Yeah, something like that. You can be the and I'll be like Igor or something.
Well, it is. I'll tell you what, it is Pirate Week. So Noodle, if you want to set something up, I'm happy to come and join the crew. I'm going to go undercover.
For sure.
That
we
could
can
be good,
find
isn't
some
it?
gold traders.
That'll be good. All right, then. We'll also look forward to that. We'll also look forward to hearing your guys' thoughts below in the comments below. And I'll try and get Moist and Expat to try and jump in and answer some of those if you tailor towards them. So with that, then, he's been Moist Noodle. She's been ExpatBrat. And I've been Execute.
Oh, don't forget to like and subscribe.
Oh, I always do
and
that. I'm terrible.
hope
Hang on.
you
Like and
enjoy
subscribe.
the channel.
Yep. There we go. Like, subscribe. Don't forget to ring the notification bell. And thank you for those that go the extra mile on Patreon and YouTube memberships and Twitter, Twitch, Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, and all that as well. All right. With that, then,
You're awesome.
catch you next time.
Oi.